population health, and I have a master's in public health. I've always been interested. You know, population health means a healthy population. And healthy populations can only come from a healthy lifestyle. And you know, if you look at the window of blue zones, I mean, those are the healthiest populations in the world, and we have a big effort to create more blue zones. I mean, in my opinion, if you want to devote yourself to population health, you would devote yourself to how can I make this population I care about healthy, and it's all going to be about lifestyle. You know, we live here in medicine where we've created this massive medical industrial complex to deal with the ramifications of chronic disease. But the biggest truth is that the burden of chronic disease that the human race has, which really no other species on Earth has the way we have. If other species have got some chronic disease, they're probably due to man-made factors like polluting the oceans or whatever. But we human race have this massive burden of disease because we have a mismatch between our evolutionary body and the culture and lifestyle we've created. And Daniel Lieberman at Harvard, the evolutionary biologist at Harvard, who wrote the wonderful book, came out very recently, called The Evolution of the Human Body, traces our whole history for 5 million years for the pre-human species, and then all the hominoids, and he's done his work in the hominoids, and then Homo sapiens that's been around for about 220,000 years. And some of the wrong turns that we've made as a species, and now we've created a culture and a lifestyle which has caused most of us to be overweight or obese, and most of us to develop a whole host of chronic diseases that we actually don't need to have. I mean, there's always aging and death, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But it's ingrained, it's pervasive. As I've started reading and getting into this, I purified my nutrition a few years ago. Magical things happen to your body when you purify your nutrition. I've always been physically active. I've always worked to manage stress, stay positive, all those other components. But nutrition turns out, from the data, to be about 80% of the problem. And everything on that back table is unhealthy. Okay, we'll talk about that. I went to the breakfast buffet today. You know, 80% of the food on that breakfast buffet is unhealthy, and it's going to contribute. It's malnutrition that's going to contribute to chronic disease. So it's a big deal. You know, we throw birthday parties and have unhealthy food. You know, it's pervasive in our culture, but that reality is sinking in to more and more people. And more than 1,000 people, loads of family docs, will converge in San Diego this weekend for a large integrative medicine conference. I went to the Applying Functional Medicine to Clinical Practice training conference in Austin this summer, which has had exponential increase in people training in this functional or lifestyle medicine. The dominant person sitting in the room was a family doctor. You know, we are emerging this decade from what I consider kind of a primitive state of medical care. You know, we all know about primitive states of medical care. You know, before Semmelweis and hygiene and hand washing, or you know, pre-antibiotics. I mean, you can pick your time, but we sort of have these understandings and breakthroughs in medicine where we look at prior to that, you know, it was a pretty primitive time to practice. Well, we're now treating chronic diseases way downstream with very expensive drugs that all cause their own health problems, and doing things to people as our kind of health has declined and our even lifespan is now going to begin to decline a little bit. It's certainly not going to go up. And some of the realities of that is we're coming to grips with the reality that we have a lifestyle and it's mainly nutrition that causes an enormous burden of disease. And once that window opens for you as a clinician, I see patients, I take care of patients about 60% of my time. I do a lot of it online and through non-visit, but I do visits too, and I'm now spending about 60% of my time taking care of a population. Most of my patients are over the age of 70 who are there because they want to be as healthy as possible. So it's actually a bit of an opportunity to look at aging, lifestyle, and health, having a lot of fun with it. But I now stop more drugs than I start and try to create health among the population. And that's a lot of fun. And I think more and more family docs kind of want to do that because there's a feeling of spinning our wheels as we're managing chronic diseases with more and more medications that get more and more expensive, and we feel like, are we just sort of part of this medical industrial complex and expensive drugs and type 2 diabetes, the most expensive chronic illness in society, which one are you going to choose? And we all know that the generic inexpensive drugs, except for metformin, are counterproductive, so you've got to think of the new ones. Not a good situation. But what's happening is that we have health-enhancing therapies. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the biology that's not lifestyle, just to open your mind to it a little bit, because it's really incredibly exciting. But what we're seeing is the emergence of therapies that are making everything we did before obsolete. In cancer therapy, which I'll mention, pretty much everything before 2010 is now obsolete. Cancer therapy has been completely redone, and we're doing amazing, amazing things with it right now. There's a lot of backlash, and Thomas Kuhn, his famous 1962 book that is so classic that keeps coming up. It's come up throughout my career, but we have loads of scientists ignoring data, ignoring research findings that threaten their paradigm and trigger the development of new and competing beliefs. Changing a scientific paradigm only happens through discovery brought by repeated encounters with anomalies. I'm going to throw out one thing, which you'll hear a couple times today. The inflammatory protein complex called gluten, consisting of gliadins and glutenins and other things. This inflammatory protein complex is unhealthy to every human being. It causes small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, leaky gut as it's called. It results in inflammatory proteins getting into our body that, by the best science today, appears to be the trigger of most autoimmune disease, from hypothyroidism to rheumatoid arthritis to everything else. This science is being very well worked out. Yet every week we will see articles, poo-pooing gluten hysteria, and you'll find many academic physicians, saying, this really isn't true, and it's put on, and where all that comes from just invokes the Thomas Kuhn phenomenon. I'm going to touch on three things: health-enhancing immunotherapy, stem cell therapy, and then nutrition are the three things I'm going to comment on, because I think these are sort of three of the big biology and healthy population breakthroughs. And those of us who have been around a while, our favorite piece in the New England Journal of Medicine was the essay by Lewis Thomas that was there, and he wrote notes of a biology watcher at that time, Lives of the Cell. But he had one description about halfway technologies, that we got to replace them with a complete understanding of the cause of disease. So rather than, I know a number of cardiovascular surgeons who have become preventive cardiologists. They got tired of doing bypasses and stents on people because of lifestyle conditions, and realized realized that these are halfway technologies which tend to be very, very expensive. And they decided to go to the source and start working with populations to get them to purify their lifestyles so this burden of coronary artery disease wouldn't happen in the first place. And knowing those root causes of it and dealing with it in populations is really the complete. And full technologies are very inexpensive. Treating polio was a very expensive illness back in the 50s. Polio vaccine, which was relatively inexpensive, in many ways took care of the problem. And that's really what we need to do in medicine. The Emperor of All Maladies, Mukherjee's book on cancer, the biography of cancer, is a wonderful, wonderful read. And it gives you the entire history of cancer up to 2010. Fascinating read, and it's the whole development of what I lived through in the early days of medical oncology, and watch how we really tortured people to try to cure their cancer back in the 70s and the 80s and up to now. And what's going on now in cancer therapy, which is basically, do a precision medicine DNA analysis of the cancer, and then how can we help this host, this person, reject the cancer. We all have kind of gotten a window that, we're rejecting the possibility of cancer all the time. And actual cancer happens when that ability to recognize a cancer as a foreign material and deal with it or correct the mistake or the aberrancy is lost, and the cancer takes off. So cancer therapy, amazingly enough now at centers, is basically making the person healthier, enhancing their own immune system or giving them a trigger to reject the cancer, rather than try to poison the cancer while we poison the host. Very exciting. And that's all part of shifting the immune system. These early immune biologicals were actually negative drugs. They squashed our immune system. Prednisone is the sledgehammer of the immune system that has enormous negative health consequences while it tries to do good. But all these other drugs that you're seeing, we watched be advertised over previous decades, are rapidly becoming obsolete because, fortunately, we're developing therapies that actually turn on the immune response, don't turn off the immune response. And that's really emerging. Now, that's one area where obviously the drug companies with very expensive drugs are weighing in. But the biologists are looking at other ways, vaccines with viruses attached to the vaccine. So, there's really no drug involved when it comes to a tailor-made immunization using a virus like the cowpox virus, kind of thing, or even, based on the smallpox virus or polio or one of the others inactivated viruses, but can still go through the immune system, but it will have the ability to kill it, really without drugs. And so those kind of healthy vaccinations are coming around the corner. I think we family docs are the integrators. The beauty in family medicine is that there are no boundaries of what we can understand, what people can do. And I think it's important that we be as open and knowledgeable as possible so that we can facilitate our patients getting into the right care for them, obviously. And it's got to be at a place, it's got to be at a place where the new biology is connected to the community. And we have those centers all over the country. But if you're working in a place, right now, pretty much every medical school has developed new departments in rejuvenation biology, or they have cancer centers that are connected to the new biology. And if you go talk to the academic oncologists or what's going on at their clinical oncology meetings, this is like the most exciting time they could ever imagine of what they're doing. They can help people without harming people. They can cure stage 4 cancers magically. There's some of these new therapies that are only being used in in stage 4 cancer because they're experimental. But they're, not everyone gets it, and it isn't, but the rate of miracles is going up very, very fast. And the design virus vaccines is therapy. I make more than one stem cell referral every week in my practice. It's part of the understanding of the biology. We have billions and billions of stem cells in our body today. We rejuvenate, whether it's repairing a cut or any lesion. We rejuvenate ourselves, calling on our own stem cells all the time. We age and die in part because we run out of stem cells, or the stem cells aren't being activated to heal an area of the body. An area of our body that gets sick or injured has beacons that sort of can grab pluripotential stem cells and heal and rejuvenate. Now, it turns out our evolutionary body has more stem cells right under our skin than anywhere else. For example, per milliliter, our surface fat tissue under our skin has 2,500 times more stem cells than our bone marrow has. And these mesenchymal stem cells that live in this stromal vascular fraction of our bodies have an ability to be unleashed and help. And I'll show a little bit of that. It's incredibly exciting, and it enhances the body's natural healing process to use new cells to replace damaged ones. I mean, the real biochemistry, everything it's incredibly complex, but on the surface, the concepts are very, very straightforward. And in many ways, that's what our body does. We age and die, and we accelerate our aging near the end of our life because our own process of using new cells to replace damaged one wanes and then eventually is not there. We all watch how hard it is to heal ulcers in the elderly and others. We kind of blame it on circulation. Not that that isn't there, but the reality is their ability to heal has senesced or has declined. And most of our tissues have a finite number of times that this process occurs in a lifetime. We know that's driven by the telomeres attached to our chromosomes. So telomere preservation is a way of preserving your own stem cell ability to enhance things. Stem cell therapy renews this process to prevent and treat disease. So you can then personalize and customize therapy based on the DNA of the diseased tissue. This is a wonderful book written by a biologist. The foreword by Dorian Sagan. He's the son of Carl Sagan, another sort of aging researcher, but Cracking the Aging Code, the new science of growing old and what it means for staying young. It's a wonderful book, and he's got a regular blog that is also quite good. But these scientists they've now got a pretty good handle on the reality of why we age and die. We are designed to age and die. I mean, that's not due to lifestyle. We are programmed to age and die. Now, not every species has that. There are actually species, certain clams and other things, which actually don't age. They only die when something bad happens, like destroying the coral reef with acidification of the ocean or mishaps. But they actually don't die. There's even biologic species that have reverse aging. That is, they get healthier, younger, and stronger the longer they live. He goes into all of this and talks about, us as a species. And you might say, well, don't mess with our species. If we're supposed to grow old and die, let it be, if you will. And you can make that sort of ethical argument. The truth of the matter is the biologists are really racing to manipulate aging. And that's why you'll see these articles of You know, a child today may live to be 140, or there's a book when I'm 164, or whatever. If we don't do it, someone else is going to. We're in a global scientific community. Much of this work is being done outside the United States, but it's going to be, for better or worse, this work is being done. And the next generation of physicians are going to watch this. It's, you know, what's going to happen over the next 20 to 30 years with manipulating aging is really quite striking. There's various parts of it. Greg Fahey is a scientist in California who points out that our thymus is absolutely critical to the future of our immune system. Now, we all know about the thymus being large and young, and it establishes T cell and B cell immunity. So even the thymus, not only with the T cells for cellular mediated immunity, but all of our immune globulins that come from the B cell side of it are all developed in the thymus. Well, thymic activity pretty much disappears around age 65. So we have this thing called immune senescence. We have a senescence of our immune system that is biologically programmed. We can do bad things to ourselves to make it go out earlier, but in general, that's when it goes out. Well, he's working with how to keep thymic activity alive longer, and that's one sort of vital area, because without a thymus, we're not going to be able to, our immune system will not prevent certain diseases and death. The telomere regeneration has a whole host of scientists and companies working on that. And then Aubrey de Grey and Google has invested an enormous amount of money in this and want to be a leader in the whole aging research area. It's unstoppable, and it's going very, very fast. And I think it's important that we family docs stay literate, because this, we sort of have a catbird seat, if you will, and understanding the concepts of this biology are not difficult, and obviously can help guide our patients accordingly. This is just a little bit on the telomeres. That's Aubrey de Grey's book, Ending Aging. He kind of looks at the key 7 or 8 things that, if we have breakthroughs, will reverse human aging in our lifetime. The autologous stem cells, the Japanese scientists who really showed that we don't need embryonic stem cells. As a matter of fact, the stem cells right under your skin are the best possible stem cells. They're better than if you had cord blood stem cells. So, why the mesenchymal stem cells have emerged as the best ones, as opposed to hematopoietic or even embryonic. And of course, it's no rejection; it's your own cells, and what they're doing with it. The application is way out ahead of the science in terms of academic health centers. I mean, all 5 of the University of California medical schools have very active stem cell research programs, but the technology of applying it is moving. One of the most exciting areas of stem cell work is in neuroregeneration. They've now got work with NFL football players who've gone from disabled from multiple concussions to working in banks and other places through neurodegeneration. They've got imaging showing that using stem cells both in the bloodstream and in the spinal column through like a lumbar puncture have resulted in dramatic improvement. They're doing it to soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan who've had head injuries. And there's 2 therapies that are shown to cause neurogenesis in these folks: stem cells and hyperbaric oxygen. And look for both of those being used. But they're doing rehabilitation now from stroke. These applications, and that's just the neurologic part of it. I mean, stem cells can rejuvenate cardiomyopathies, some of the heart failure type patients. They can help improve COPD. Lots of applications, and even facelifts. You know, if you want to see something interesting, just Google stem cell facelifts and hit Google image. These pictures will come up. They're not sham pictures. They're not fake. They are actually, the plastic surgeons are realizing, you know, there's no more cutting involved anymore or artificially pulling people. You can actually rejuvenate a face with a stem cell facelift, which is a cosmetic application, but I'm more focused on the lifestyle part of it. Orthopedics is the most common. You know, the joint replacement programs, you can regenerate cartilage if the cartilage isn't completely gone, if there's still at least something to build off of there left. Direct application of orthopedics. 2 of our family medicine faculty of Eisenhower have just been trained in this. We plan to start a program in our own hospital and residency in using orthopedic or sports medicine application of stem cells. But it's again an area that is coming. It's already here to a great degree, and you know, it's clear, you know, these things are resulting in definite benefit in, you know, not everybody. The improvement numbers are running about 80 to 85% of people improvement, not necessarily cure, but improvement of their conditions as a result of stem cell applications. And I was at the National Academy of Medicine meeting, when it used to be called the Institute of Medicine, where they're actually talking about the fact that organ transplantation may become obsolete, and all the rejection and others through the development of our stem cell biology, which is pretty exciting. Pittsburgh is currently a big place for organ transplantation, but it may well change. So curing aging, these are all part of that, for better or for worse. I think we ought to stay literate in it. But let's talk about nutrition, because first of all, with an unhealthy lifestyle, none of this matters. I mean, it would be tragic to do something like a stem cell application and then just poison it with things. And you're going to hear a lot about this today, but I'm a lumper, not a splitter, because you know, you're going to go home remembering a couple of things, okay, and in the midst of all the complexity. And there are 2 big problems with our modern nutrition, and you're going to hear a lot about them today. They're completely separate problems, so don't get them mixed up. The first problem is that we eat way too many carbohydrates. And Sarah Hallberg is a big leader in this. Her TED Talk is fabulous. You're going to hear from her a little bit later this morning, if she's on the program. I don't think she's here yet, Sarah. No, she's not. 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein, and fat. The only one we do not need at all is carbohydrates. And we all know the brain runs on sugar, and that the body has a very nice mechanism for turning either fat or protein into sugar. The Eskimos up there don't have any carbohydrates. We sort of have created a high carbohydrate nutrition brought in by the Diabetes Association and the Heart Association and other authorities. Junk Science was a great book by Denise Minger called Death by Food Pyramid. She outlines the history of Ansel Keys and his junk science, the working with the food industry. You know, grains and carbohydrates are the most profitable food commodity. They can easily be stored. They can be turned into things that don't have expiration dates in bags and boxes, and they are the driver of overweight and obesity. You don't have to believe me on this, but the evidence is clear, and I'll direct you later on today to all the sources of that. One of the Mark Hyman, who's family medicine trained and the head of functional medicine, the Institute for Functional Medicine, and the chairman of Cleveland Clinic's program, is got a wonderful new book that just came out this year called Eat Fat, Get Thin, which I highly recommend all of you. It covers all of the science behind what I'm talking about. But excess carbohydrates. You know, there was a obese cardiologist from Ohio. Actually, his family had run some restaurants in Dayton, Ohio, where I went to college, University of Dayton, and then went to University of Michigan and went to Cornell Medical School and did his internal medicine at Columbia and became a cardiologist and opened up a practice on the Upper East Side of Manhattan back in 1958, but he was an obese type 2 diabetic cardiologist. And in 1963, he read a study in JAMA from the University of Wisconsin, who said a novel approach to weight loss, a low carbohydrate diet. So he decided to follow it, and he lost all of his excess weight, and he reversed his diabetes. So he began to apply that in patients and developed the concept of a low carbohydrate diet, less than 50 grams a day. So you were actually shedding some ketones, ketogenic diet, small amounts of ketones, which basically mean you're burning body fat instead of all the carbohydrates you eat. This cardiologist, his name was Robert Atkins. He didn't write his book until the 70s. But if you go back and read it, it's actually fascinating, because most of what we're doing today is in that book, a guy we all kind of ridiculed and made fun of. But the excess carbohydrate story keeps popping up, and that is all based on the glycemic load, and we'll talk more about that. But even bigger is the inflammatory proteins that come from foods. The two most inflammatory foods that we eat are the seeds of grass, also known as grains, and cow's milk. We started eating grains 10,000 years ago. We started drinking cow's milk 8,000 years ago. 3 and 4% of the lifetime of the Homo sapiens on Earth. And these inflammatory proteins, which cause intestinal permeability and trigger many, many different diseases. And the biology and the science is sort of being worked out. It runs counter to big food, and it runs counter to a lot of our relatively conservative organizations. I was a big believer in the NASH diet, and I followed the Heart Association diet religiously until about 3 years ago, and I sort of looked into the politics behind those diets, and all I can do is shake my head of how those diets happened and who influenced them and who's been bought and the whole thing, and how that runs counter to the science. But a lot of us family docs are waking up to this. And I sort of put it there with global warming. I don't know what's going to get us first, global warming or malnutrition. They both are put in motion in a way that is not making things optimistic for the human race, but we can change the world. And healthy eating is about abundance, not deprivation. The foods of nature, the bottom line is just eat the foods of nature. I often tell patients, imagine you're on a tropical island. It's the best one in the entire world for food. There's wonderful vegetables and fruits and seeds and nuts and healthy meat and healthy fish. It's just the perfect tropical island. That's the way you should eat, as if you lived on that tropical island. Well, you can go into almost any healthy-oriented market. Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or some of your special ones. You can actually eat that way. And it's about abundance, not deprivation. No disease that can be treated with diet should be treated any other way. Maimonides. Take it to heart. He was in the 12th century. So I will give you more on that later this afternoon, but I'm going to turn it over to our next speaker. Thank you.